Every single day, billions of dollars worth of goods cross borders, often between people who have never, ever met. So, how does that even work? How can a seller in one country possibly trust a buyer halfway around the world with a shipment worth millions? Well, it all comes down to this really amazing system called international trade finance. So, let's just imagine for a second that you're in this situation. You've got a whole container full of products you've made, and a company in another country, they want to buy it all. That's fantastic. But then you start to think, wait a minute, if I ship all these goods, am I actually going to get my money? And at the same time, they're thinking, if I send them all this money, are they actually going to ship the goods? You're stuck. It's a classic standoff. And this right here, this visualizes the fundamental problem perfectly. You've got the goods flowing one way, the payment flowing the other, and then you have all these important documents moving through a completely different channel. The exporter, well, they want to get paid before they let go of their stuff. And the importer, of course, doesn't want to hand over their cash until they know the goods are what they paid for and are on the way. Now, what's so cool about this slide is how it shows this tug of war. See, on one end, you've got cash in advance. That's a dream for the exporter, totally safe for them. On the other end, you have open account, which is the safest for the importer. The problem is, both of those extremes dump all the risk on one person. And for global trade to actually work, you gotta find a solution somewhere in that messy middle. So the solution that people figured out over hundreds of years isn't some person, it's a system, a really powerful, reliable system. And right at the heart of it is an intermediary that both sides can trust, a bank. The bank doesn't care who's right or wrong, it just follows a very strict set of rules. So okay, how does this actually play out? Well, it's this really elegant 6-step process. First, the importer goes to their bank and gets a promise to pay. That promise then gets sent to the exporter. Now the exporter trusts the bank, not the buyer, so they go ahead and ship the goods. Once the exporter proves they've shipped, the bank pays them. Then the bank gives the importer the documents they need to pick up the goods, and the importer pays the bank back. See? Problem solved. But wait a second, how does the exporter prove they shipped anything? Well, the whole system runs on a set of 3 absolutely critical documents. You can think of these as the gears that make the entire machine of global trade actually turn. And the first and most important gear is the letter of credit, usually just called an LC. This is the bank's official conditional promise to pay. And that word conditional is key. The bank will only, and I mean only, pay the exporter if they show up with the exact right documents that prove they did their part. And here's what one looks like. See how it lists out exactly what's needed? A commercial invoice, a packing list, proof of shipment. The bank's job isn't to go down to the docks and inspect the cargo. Nope. Their job is to be a professional document checker. If the paperwork matches the LC perfectly, the bank pays. If there's even one tiny little mistake, they don't. It's that strict. And this creates a total win-win. The exporter is happy because, hey, they've just swapped the credit risk of some unknown company for the rock-solid credit of a major bank. And the importer is protected because they know their money isn't going anywhere until the exporter has proven they've shipped the goods exactly according to the terms they agreed on. All right, the second key document is called the draft, or sometimes a bill of exchange. The easiest way to think about this is that it's the formal demand for payment. It's the official piece of paper the exporter writes that says, okay, pay this much money on this specific date. It's the tool that actually pulls the trigger on the payment that was promised in the LC. And these drafts come in 2 main flavors. First, you have a sight draft. This is basically like saying, pay me right now, the second you see this. Then you have a time draft, which is a form of short-term credit. It says something like, pay me in 90 days. This is great for the importer because it gives them time to actually get the goods, maybe even sell them, and then use that money to make the payment. And finally, the third document, the bill of lading. The shipping company, like Maersk or one of those giants, issues this to the exporter when they pick up the cargo. And this piece of paper, wow, it is so powerful. It is basically the key that unlocks ownership of all those goods. It actually does 3 critical things at once. 1, it's a receipt, proving the goods were handed over. 2, it's a contract, laying out all the shipping terms. But the most important role, by far, is that it's a document of title. What that means is whoever is legally holding that bill of lading can go to the port and claim that container. So, by controlling the document, the bank actually controls the goods until the importer pays up. Okay, so that system works great for most transactions, but what happens when things get way more complicated? I mean, what if the payment isn't due in 90 days, but in, say, 5 years? And what if the buyer is in a country that's considered economically or politically risky? Yeah,
That's a massive problem. An exporter might be thrilled to get a huge order, but they just can't afford to wait 5 years to get paid. And they certainly can't take on the risk that something might go wrong in the buyer's country and the payment gets blocked. They need their cash now, and they need that risk to just go away. And the solution here is a special technique called forfeiting. It sounds complex, but the idea is simple. The exporter basically sells the importer's promise to pay, what we call a receivable, to a third party called a forfaiter. They sell it at a discount, so they get a bit less than the full amount, but the key is they get the money right now. And the most important part of this whole deal is one little phrase: non-recourse. And non-recourse is the magic phrase. It means that once the exporter sells that debt to the forfaiter, they are 100% done. They have their cash, and they can just walk away. If the importer doesn't pay for some reason 5 years from now, that's the forfaiter's problem, not theirs. The risk has been completely and totally transferred. This little chart shows you how it works. The exporter makes the sale, and they get a promise from the importer's bank for all those future payments. But instead of sitting around and waiting, they immediately take that promise and sell it to the forfaiter. The forfaiter gives them cash on the spot, and in return, the forfaiter takes on the job and all the risk of collecting that money over the next few years. It's a clean and simple swap. A very risky long-term sale gets turned into immediate, risk-free cash.
So, why did we just spend all this time talking about these weird documents and financing terms? Because this isn't just some abstract academic topic. This is the hidden machinery that makes our entire global economy work. Seriously, without this system of trusted banks and standardized documents, international trade as we know it would just stop. It survived everything: wars, financial crises, you name it, because it's built on such a powerful idea. You replace fragile personal trust with a strong, reliable process. It's the framework that lets a small business in one country sell with confidence to a brand new customer in another. But that leaves us with a final, really interesting question for the future. I mean, this entire system was built on physical paper, on courier services, on ink signatures. So what happens now in an age of blockchain, AI, and instant digital payments? Can these old paper documents adapt? Or are we going to see a completely new system of trust emerge to replace them? The answer to that is going to shape the future of how the world does business.